If we could, let's bow our heads a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. We will begin with calling the meeting to order officially and welcoming all of you. I believe I see some good, friendly, regular faces. Is there anyone that's never been to our meetings before? Okay. Let's stand and pledge allegiance to the flag to my right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to consider approving the agenda, and I believe, Madam Attorney, you have something you wanted to... I did what?
Before the agenda.
Public hearing on the budget.
Sorry.
Well, it didn't say public hearing. Okay, it's public meeting. All right, well, I was wondering why this... All right. When you look at your agenda, I assume yours is like mine. The word hearing is not there, but we are going to have a public hearing, I understand. So, Mr. Hewitt, I guess it's you. I was wondering why it was written like that.
This is the public hearing for the upcoming fiscal year budget, fiscal year 1920.
2020.
The budget ordinance, I believe, is on the back table, in case you haven't had the opportunity to review it. It has been online in the form of a budget message since May the 10th. The subsequent revisions that the board has directed have been included in tonight's draft budget ordinance. Tonight I'm going to go through some of the highlights by fund, what it does not do, and then a brief overview of our capital improvement plan.
There you go.
Specifically, the following slides will lay out the budget schedule that the board has followed, and in addition, also detail some of the top 10 Board of Commissioner goals. Suffice it to say that the total budget is right at a little bit over $17 million. In the general fund, we've got $3.4 million. Water and sewer fund is $5.3 million, with a big piece of that being our sewer lift station upgrade. The B Part fund is about $3 million. Our canal dredging fund, which keeps a shovel-ready product, is $2.1 million, and then our capital reserve funds, which are our inlet and beach, our water, and our sewer capital reserve funds, holding at $3.2 million. And the capital improvement plan, which is a 10-year window of upcoming potential projects, is about $15.4 million. We got started early this year in February with the commissioners having their initial workshop, identifying their goals and the capital programs. Mid-February, the Canal Dredging Working Group met along with, not together, but in addition to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board and the Beach and Inlet Board, to assist the staff in developing the desires for the upcoming fiscal year. End of February, the departments got their inputs to me. During the course of the first week of March, period of about 6 weeks, the Board of Commissioners ensued with about 5 budget workshops. And as I referred to earlier, resulting in a manager's budget message to the commissioners on the 10th of May. At the last regular board meeting, the commissioners directed a reduction of the ordinance or the tax rate by 2 cents, and that is reflected in tonight's budget, of course, which is under consideration. And as a reminder for the board, we must adopt the budget by the 1st of July. Top 10 goals and objectives that the commissioners laid out: no new taxes, no annual debt, and no tax increase, to increase the beach parks access recreation trust fund and the general fund balances, to develop a short-term beach renourishment plan, and to make progress on $10 million escrowed funds in the Beach and Inlet Fund over a period of 10 years. To look at developing a communications plan, further advocacy efforts aimed at our sand fund strategy and supporting documentation, focusing on advocacy in general, and then recognizing that the board has to look at and come up with a plan about the long-term expenditures for all of the various dredging projects in the Lockwood Folly Inlet, in the Lockwood Folly River and inlet system, and also express a desire to improve the community rating score. The proposed budget ordinance, as I said earlier, recommended a 22-cent tax rate. Last month, the commissioners directed to reduce that to a revenue-neutral tax rate of 20 cents. The balanced budget here for your consideration tonight, with revenues equaling expenses, accomplishes that by cutting out some expenses and also upwardly projecting some of the cats and dogs revenues. We're able to do that by the very fact that by early June, this time of the year, the revenue projections, we have the lion's share of most of our revenues in, and we can make some better guesstimates on just what the upcoming year's revenues will be. Specifically, state distributed revenues are the ones that normally cause us the most problem in anticipating. Our water and sewer funds, those revenues are trending about the same. We haven't had any water sewer rate increases for some time now, and as Chris Clemens can tell you, the water consumption and hence sewer consumption is holding steady, so we don't anticipate any great increase there from the revenue side. Although there are accommodations in the water and sewer capital reserve funds to transfer the system development fees that were adopted last year over into those capital reserve funds from the water and sewer operations fund. Our B-part revenues continue a healthy, albeit slight trend upward. That revenue stream, the occupancy tax stream, has seen increases over the last several years, regardless of if it's rains, sunshine, and disasters. People have still seemed like they'll save up their money and eat bologna sandwiches to drive down from Ohio to get to Holden Beach. So that's trending upward. There is a transfer from the general fund of $576,000 to partially offset the Central Reach debt service, along with some fund balance appropriations that are directly related to sand search and BOC, Board of Commissioner goals. So the reduction of 2 cents in the tax rate created a shortfall of $262,000 approximately. We met that shortfall by an accommodation of teasing out some of the general fund revenues, propping it up by about $40,000, and then taking the rest of the shortfall from the expenditure side. Those specifically were the reduction in the governing body expenses. We deleted live meetings, some of the hurricane preparedness money, along with the operational contingencies. Took $50,000 out of the inspections department, which basically was a replacement vehicle and the cost of the contractor's annual meeting. The police department was the big loser in this exercise. It was $112,000. Cut out some of the maintenance and repair on the vehicles, a voice stress analyzer, the new position, new vehicle that goes along with that, and of course, the uniforms, purchase, the retooling of the uniforms. In streets, that was a straight up deletion of a replacement vehicle. What the budget does, what this ordinance does, so we took a lot of stuff out, but what the budget does is that as required by the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act, we got to pay our debts. So we pay all of the debt service on the new town hall, the sewer collection system, and our emergency operations system. Now the sewer collection system is, what I mean by that, those are the lines that are here on the beach that we have financed. All three of those are installment financing instruments with BB&T. The Central Reach project, we have to pay it. That's a special obligation bond with PNC in excess of $1 million a year. The proposed budget pays for all contractual obligations on the West Brunswick Regional Sewer System. That is the plant capacities in supply and the transmission lines that take it off the island all the way to supply. That arrangement, of course, is spelled out in the interlocal agreement for the West Brunswick Regional Sewer System in the town of Holden Beach. This budget increases the general fund balance ratio to approximately a projection of approximately 65%. Retains employee benefits at the current levels, along with a proposed merit pool of 3%. The recycling frequency and rollback program, both of those services have increased. The budget pays for the second phase of the CAMA land use plan update and the western half of Brunswick Avenue paving is accommodated within this budget. In addition, the update for the beach and inlet master plan is taken care of in this budget, along with keeping a shovel-ready canal dredging project in case we have a storm. In the Water and Sewer Fund, there are appropriations for the upgrade of Lift Station 3, both engineering and construction estimates. There's a new manpower position budgeted for, a new vehicle to go along with that manpower position, and also the professional services for an engineering assessment of the need for the second water tower study. In B Part, those fund balances I referenced earlier include a sand search for $170,000, and appropriation was made this year, but we will, basically it rolls over into next year. Our advocacy consultant funds are also included in here, as well as a financial consultant to assist in the how our FEMA project is going to come down and how we're going to have to modify our special obligation bond profiles. The boards want to travel a bit more, along with a fire station upgrade and a walkway grant contribution. Canal dredging, I just want to touch on this briefly. Just as a reminder for everybody, we've got a special legislation that allows us to collect dredging assessments on an annual basis, just like you do with a tax. Basically, all of the dredging that has taken place in the canal system up until this year has been self-funded. Up until this year, everybody that lived on the canal system paid a assessment that purportedly was going to, or is going to, keep those canals cleaned out. We were fortunate in that we were able to, in addition to that self-funding, able to procure a state grant through the Shallow Draft Inlet Navigation Fund that paid for a whole lot of that canal dredging. So that system of dredging, the process is set up by law. There are separate districts for each subdivision. We can accrue those funds up to 10 years. And the working group that has steadfastly assisted us in scoping and managing that program, they annually coordinate with us as we carry that program forward. So just what you're wanting to know, this is the flat rate, the assessments for the upcoming year that's been coordinated with this group. I believe that's really $260 if you look at the budget ordinance, not $250 for Harbor Acres. I think that's a misprint. The Holden Beach Harbor is going to be $400 along with Heritage Harbor. What the budget does not do, it does not comply with our 7 years and 70,000 mile vehicle replacement policy. It doesn't improve our community rating system. Mr. Evans is going to talk to the group in a little bit exactly just how that community rating system works. I believe that he's had an inspection this past week and is pretty well current on how those things work. There is no Lockwood Folly Inlet navigation money for the Merritt, which, oh, by the way, is out there right now, probably about another total of about 10 days. And the reason for that is twofold. One, it's hard to pin the core down on just when that program dredging is going to take place. And two, the Corps is sitting on about $500,000 of state and other contributed funds. So by our calculation, we think that they've got nigh on about a month of dredging days to work with, and what we've been presented here for you tonight is recommending that you not make an appropriation and just wait till they spin that down, and then we'll see how the channel holds up, and we'll make a decision later on in the years to how that works out. There is a small stipend for the Murden in there. We think that there may be an opportunity. I think that's about $33,000. There may be an opportunity to employ the Murden if it becomes available. The Murden is the hopper dredge that picks the sand up and puts it in the near shore. We like that a lot better than the side caster that just sprays it to the side. There is no Lockwood Folly Inlet Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway crossing money in the proposed budget. And the reason for that is it'll be covered a little bit later, is that we're proposing that it be paid for this fiscal year. And you have a budget amendment for you. As a matter of fact, we've already coordinated with the state in order to make that happen. It was a contractual issue with the Corps in order to get their contracts out. They needed the money, so that's why there is no money in this proposed budget. We're going to pay for it up front. Capital Reserve Fund in waters, $26,000. Capital Reserve Fund in sewers, $44,000. In addition to the beach renourishment and inlet management fund at $3.1 million. The capital improvement plan itself, 10-year plan, approximately $15 million. This is where we lay out our strategies for our streets maintenance, our water and sewer equipment, shoreline stabilization, upgrades in our sewer lift station, and our water supply improvements. I am not going to attempt to go through a $15 million capital improvement plan, especially when the print is about that big. But the way that it works is that year one in the capital improvement plan is reflected in the budget, and we refine it every year. So that concludes the presentation of the fiscal year 19 and 20 budget ordinance, and I'll be glad to attempt to answer any questions. If I can't, I'm sure that the department heads will be able to. Hey, Larry.
Hey, on this capital sewer fee, it's $497.30. Is this something that we will be paying forever, or does it go away?
The actual $497.30, I think, is related to the contractual obligations in the sewer plant, and that I believe in the budget message, there's an actuary table that shows when that finishes. I want to say the final obligation in there, it tails off through 23, 24, and 25 and ends in 26. Now, I can't speak for, unless there is other debt that's assumed that would qualify for that. If that doesn't happen, then it would tail off. Anybody else? Thank you.
Yeah, I've got one quick question, David, I'm sorry.
Almost.
I know Tim is going to speak to the insurance soon tonight. The fact that his contracts, seminar, workshop has been taken out of the budget for next year, is that going to impact the insurance? Could it impact, or maybe he will address that?
He can address that, but the inspection that happened last week, the next one won't be for several years. So
Okay.
that adjudication has been made based on what we've done.
Okay. I know he continually works to try to bring, there's a relationship with his work and our insurance rates.
That's right.
And I was just asking if that is going to impact that.
Let him answer that.
I had a question. You mentioned that part of the capital improvement plan included beach stabilization. What is that and where is it listed? I know it's tiny, so I didn't even look at it either.
You got me, Vicki. That, the only thing in there for Big Park is walkway.
Right.
Yeah. The capital improvement plan would be where beach stabilization would end up if we had a project program. But you got it. Go once.
Mr. Freer, I know you prepared this agenda. Is that fulfill the public meeting? Have we finished that?
My understanding, yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, we were, I believe, on the,
Could I just make one comment? I didn't want to interrupt while you were talking, but there's a typo on page 15 of the message where it says it's typewritten for 22 cents, and in parentheses is the correct 20 cents. I just think you want to change that typo.
Commissioners, please speak into the microphones so the audience can hear.
Yeah. There is, on the last page of the budget, I have to find it. Anyway, it's written that it's 22 cents, and in parentheses is 20 cents. So they made the adjustment to 20 cents, but it's still written as if it was the prior 22 cent. And you just want to change it.
Oh, I got you. We got the number right, but
Yeah,
the verbiage.
exactly.
yes, thank you.
37.
Yeah, just so it's correct.
Oh, yeah.
It's on page 37 in the
Yeah,
packet.
got it.
Now, we ready to try to move ahead?
Yes, sir.
We're gonna try number 4 again. Madam Attorney, you wanted to add something to the agenda?
Yes, I was gonna add a closed session for attorney-client.
Everybody understand what she wants to do? Okay, anything else in regards to the agenda before we entertain a motion to approve
I do.
as amended?
I need to move that we amend the agenda by removing item number 8 from the agenda. This was added to the agenda assuming that there would be a meeting between the auditor, the audit committee, and the town by this time, and that meeting didn't occur. And as a result, the Jay Sharp, the attorney, the lawyer, or not the lawyer, the accountant, is not attending the meeting tonight to make that presentation. He preferred to wait till after the audit committee heard the results and after the coordination was done with the town for the report. So he called me today and said that he wouldn't be at the meeting because of that. So we just take that number off the agenda.
That would be 8 and 9, correct?
No, 9 can stay. Because as I understand from him, the audit's already been approved. Apparently the board doesn't need to approve it anymore. And the letter of representation and the audit have already been submitted to the LGC. So if the board wants to discuss that, we should discuss it. Otherwise, so I think I would like to leave it on the agenda for a discussion anyway.
I second the change.
Okay. You're seconding his,
Is number 8 removal, yes.
okay, well, we didn't do her addition yet.
Oh,
So
sorry,
we need to get in order. If you're gonna do them individually
sure.
or collectively, the way you're going about it's individual, so all in favor of the attorney's request to be added to the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. All in favor of deleting number 8, say aye.
Aye.
Both of those are unanimous, Madam Clerk. Any other changes to the agenda? Is there a motion that we approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimous to approve the amended agenda with those 2 items. All right. We're going to number 5, consideration of the minutes of May 21, special meeting and regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve those?
I just would make a motion that we amend the minutes of the regular meeting on page 10. Just to clarify, I had made a motion that we adjust the budget to be not only revenue neutral, but to have a 2-cent reduction in the tax rate, and that was never seconded. And so another motion was made by Commissioner Freer just to have a revenue neutral budget. And the way it is there, it just doesn't make sense. So I would just ask that we add the comment that there was no second on my motion, and then we move to Commissioner Freer's motion.
Madam Clerk, you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Anybody oppose that?
No.
All right, anything else? Okay, We need a motion to approve as corrected. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear a motion, did I?
So moved.
So moved. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay. All right, let's go to number 6, public comments, and I have no one that signed up. Did we miss anybody that signed up? Okay. Police report, chief.
So we made it, excuse me, so we made it through Memorial Day, and the next one is gonna be the 4th of July. As far as the month of May goes, you can see the numbers here. If you have questions, I would be glad to answer them for you. It's pretty standard. We've been busy, wide open. Had a lot of ordinance complaints, as you can see. We have issued 47 parking tickets over the month of May. So we're really trying to crack down on some of these issues that we're getting a lot of complaints about. So if you're having issues, if you see a problem, please call us and let us know so we can ride out there and handle it. Next thing I want to mention is fireworks for the 4th of July. As everyone knows, they're illegal here. Please do not buy your own fireworks, shoot them off. I had noted here on July the 3rd at 9 p.m., Ocean Isle is actually going to be doing a fireworks display on their pier. So you probably, from the west end of our island, can see most of that fireworks display. And then, of course, Southport always does theirs on the 4th of July at 9 p.m. They do a grand display down there, too. So if you want to go see fireworks, one of those places is probably the best to do it. Any questions I can answer on this part, I'll be glad to try. All right, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, chief. Mr. Fletcher?
On number 9, it is the established protocol now that the audit committee chair will work with the town manager and the auditor throughout the audit process, but especially at the end, reviewing it and putting it together, packaging the report, taking it to the audit committee to review, and then having it brought to the board for approval of the audit report. I learned today from the LGC that they already have the audit report, and they already have the letter of representation, which suggests that the board has already approved the audit. And as the board is only seeing it now, almost in a draft form, I'd ask the town manager to clarify where we stand with this.
John, this is your agenda item, as far as, how the letter of representation, that's management's responsibility to provide that to the auditor, which I've done. And it was my understanding that Jay had had submitted the audit, on up.
But is there a reason we didn't have the meeting with the audit chair and you? And
Jay has been on vacation this week.
This week, yeah, but for the last weeks?
The
I've been asking him for quite a while. He said he had asked you to come up with a date, and I was waiting for you to confirm that when we would meet, but the audit's already been issued. So we won't have an audit committee.
We didn't have as I spoke with you previously, the management discussion and analysis letter or input to the audit had to be provided to Jay. Okay, that was done. I was waiting for a final to come back. I did not know that the process was that when that was submitted, then the audit went up, irrespective of a review by the audit committee or the Board of Commissioners. I provided my input to the auditor, and the auditor did what the auditor did. I did not give him instruction to submit that to the local government commission. I provided my input, the management representation, and Jay did with it what he did.
for the board, we have a disagreement because the auditor told me today that he was instructed to send it to the LGC.
He received that instruction not from me.
But he said it was from the town manager, so that's all.
Well, again, he did not receive that instruction from me.
With that, I think I would clarify that we don't need to think about approving it as it's already been submitted, so it's too late to approve it.
Is there an identified step, the process? What's the first step, what's the second step, what's the third step? I mean,
I would think
gonna
that
come in and-
that process is laid out in the contract with the, between the town and the board that is on the approved local government commission contract form. And it prescribes how the audit is submitted.
I will arrange for the auditor to meet with the audit committee and then subsequently bring a report back to the board of the audit committee's assessment and how they're gonna monitor the improvements that are being suggested. That's about, I think,
Good.
that's gonna be enough for them. Any interest from anybody else, or what you want the audit committee to do, or me to do as audit chair?
We're still going to have the auditor appear before us,
Yes,
and we can
yeah,
question.
he said he was happy, he said he was waiting to have a meeting between David, two members of the audit committee, and him. But that'll get resolved later, we'll have that meeting.
so, I don't know, you know, I'm a little confused as to the steps, I mean, yeah, going forward. And if we don't have that well documented, we should document what the steps are. And I haven't seen the contract, so therefore I don't know what's in the contract. But step number one, what's step number two, what's step number three? I came tonight hoping that I was gonna have, this Jay Sharp was gonna be here this evening, but unfortunately, that's not gonna happen. But it sounds like other things have happened that I'm unaware of.
Is the audit committee going to discuss who we will use for the audit for, well, essentially starting in July? I do have to say, this has been a very difficult year, and nothing has run smoothly. Is it the audit committee's opinion that we should, I'd like to understand if it's the audit committee's opinion to stay with this auditor or to perhaps move to another one?
They actually took a vote at the last meeting to stick with this auditor. They understood the reasons for the delays, and,
Well, they may have a difference of opinion when they see that even though the audit may have been submitted to the local government commission, it will not be approved until the contract is amended to reflect the late date, and also the modification to the terms are going to be subject to not only the Board of Commissioners' approval, but also to the local government commission's approval. The amended contract that has been put forth to me, which is my understanding, should go to the audit committee because it relates to the selection of the audit firm. That bill has been submitted in the amount of $10,000. The original contract price was $13,000 to $14,000.
Did you say it's 10,000 more?
Yes, sir.
10,000 more, primarily because when the auditor took the contract, he assumed that the books were being kept according to the law, and they weren't, so they had to convert all of our statements.
Well, wait a minute. That's, I'm gonna take issue with that because that has not been ascertained yet.
That's why we need the auditor here.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
But if we could just back up a minute. The audit committee had a meeting and discussed this issue.
Yes.
But it's still up to us to decide whether we keep them. It's just a recommendation on your part.
It'll only be a recommendation to you. And there will be an audit committee meeting early in July after the 30 June statements come out. And hopefully we will have progressed to the point that the auditors could be at that meeting as well. And that'll be a public meeting.
We're done with number
Done with
9.
Number 9, yes, sir.
Mr. Freer?
Yeah, I want to thank, once again, the Inlet and Beach Protection Board for their report. I just have one minor update. It says there's a comprehensive long-term plan that's going to be reviewed at a meeting, and that meeting is going to be in July, I believe, instead of June. So that's,
What?
It's next Thursday.
It's next Thursday, the 27th of June.
10 o'clock.
oh, okay. My mistake. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
We ready to move on?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Ferguson?
Good evening, everyone. The town received an email on June 6th from Brendan Dooley with the Corps. He's the project manager for the Corps. And the email was to let us know that they estimate 135,000 cubic yards of material available in the Ben Widener for the upcoming AIWW crossing project. The cost estimate to remove the material and utilize beneficial use beach placement is $1,165,000. We spent that Friday, the 7th, in communication with the state, the Division of Water Resources, to try to be able to utilize the memorandum of agreement, and spoke to Coley Cordero. The town has requested state funding through the North Carolina Shallow Draft Channel and Aquatic Weed Fund in the amount of $776,705, and the local match to that will need to be $388,295. The Corps, in order to include this as part of their base contract, would need to receive all money by June 27th, and that's to include the Widener as part of that base contract. They requested a letter of intent from us, which was included in your packet. To complete this action, we can take $100,000 from the current Lockwood Folly Inlet dredging line in the B part budget. The remainder of the funds, which is $288,295, will require a budget amendment to transfer funds from the Beach Renourishment and Inlet Maintenance Management Fund to the Lockwood Folly dredging line in the B part budget. Due to the timeline we were working under, we were not able to secure a reimbursement of 50% from the county, but we have reached out to the county to make them aware that we will be asking for that. So at 50%, that would be $194,147.50. Staff recommendation is to approve the budget amendment and the corresponding ordinance, and that is ordinance number 1909.
Kristen, when we make the request to the county, what's the likelihood that they'll give the 50% contribution?
David's the one that had a discussion with the county, so I will defer to him for an answer.
The county still does not have a policy certain on exactly what their participation in these projects is going to be. In the past, they have participated at 25%, and then the two towns split the other 25%. Of course, this is a different kind of circumstance, and I think that our position is that the beaches make up about a third of the county's $26 billion tax base, and that it is money well spent, and we'll be asking for 50% of the local share.
But if we don't receive the money, we'll be obligated to carry through with this and pay the full.
Yes, sir. We're gonna front the 388. Is what we'll do, and ask for it on the comeback.
And
As a matter of fact, Christie's efforts, the state has already fronted the whole pile of money to to the Corps, but they've got a yo-yo clause on it, so if we don't, or aren't forthcoming with our share, they'll can the project.
And I would just like to add that typically, and we've announced this before, that it usually takes several weeks with the Division of Water Resources to get an approval. We heard from the Corps on Thursday. We spent all day Friday working with the Division of Water Resources. The last day that they could cut checks was Tuesday, the 11th, and they had been through all of their hoops and got this done in 2 days. So the town should be appreciative to the Division of Water Resources for their efforts.
I have one question. The 100,000, that was originally, that budget was originally, I think, set at 168, is that?
It was, it
Is
had some
it-
funds in it for easements with the East End. And the reason that it was at the 100 is because we were anticipating the crossing this past time when it went to Oak Island. So we didn't use that money, and now we're able to use 100,000 of it for.
Yeah, I'm okay with using it. So the 68 is being used for other purposes? Okay, that's all. Thanks.
I think this is really wonderful, it's really great. I keep, pushing for this to happen too as well. And Dr. Coley, what is an expectation as far as when we would be able to do this project, or when this project would be done?
They will put their contract out. Normally, they have their bid opening sometime in the August timeframe, and then it depends on the order that they do the inlet. So, it would fall sometime between the fall and the end of next March.
Okay,
Wintertime. It's a
Yeah.
wintertime project.
it's good. I mean,
And they have to-
I'm
they have
really
to-
happy that we got our arms around this thing.
They have to be
Yeah.
done before turtle season starts in order to
Yeah.
put sand on the beach.
Right. That's where I was going. When is the next meeting with Dr. Coley?
It's the
Next
27th.
Thursday, the same day as the
The same
inlet
day,
beach
yeah.
board
It's the
meeting.
MOA, yep.
Yeah, same day, same time.
Yep. Yeah, this is awesome. We missed out last time.
Yeah,
We got to jump through a lot of hoops. Very, very great job to get it
yeah.
lined up for next time, which is,
This
is
is
awesome.
really, really big, folks, because you know where the sand's gonna go, right? On the east end. This is really huge.
yep. Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 1909.
So second,
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimous, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Hewitt, number 12.
As I said, I have nothing to add to the comments made during the public hearing. The budget presented for your consideration is balanced in accordance with the Fiscal Control Act, and it accomplishes the 2-cent tax rate reduction that you had instructed at the last board meeting.
I have a question, though. I would like to understand, I would like to ask, because of the sequence in the agenda. Tim's coming up later, but I'd like to ask Tim directly if this contractors meeting has any negative effect on the town.
I'd have to give a report, but, I mean, I can tell you this, that your outreach program is willing to get you as many points or more points than anything else that you do. And in our last audit, which was last week, the guy he explained to us the importance of that contractor's informational meeting under the new numbering system that they have now for awarding points. And our outreach program actually gave us a lot of points. And part of it was because of our contractor's information meeting. It is unique in that it not only helps you with your CRS rating, but there is another portion of your CRS rating, which is called the VSEGS, which is the Building Code Evaluation, which is done by the same company. The contractor's informational meeting affected us on both, which affects your total CRS rating. I'm basically giving a portion of a report that I should be giving later, but I can tell you that it directly affects your community rating system. But also go ahead and tell you that anything you do to your building inspections department directly affects your community rating system. You have, right now, you have the second lowest VSEC rating that our auditor, who's been doing this for 27 years, has ever seen. That is your building code of grade for how, what we do, our knowledge base, our education, and all of that. And part of it is because of our contractors' informational meeting and the things that we do in the community to help educate our community above and beyond what is required. You affect the amount of time I spend in the field, I can't spend enough time educating. If you affect our outreach programs by not giving us enough money to do publications or those kinds of things, it affects your CRS rating. The CRS rating is very hard to obtain, the points are very hard to get, and that's it in a nutshell without giving the bulk of the report.
Yeah.
But it does affect it.
So what I hear is, the answer is
Yes.
yes. So I would like to see some budget, work on the budget to add that back in, the contractors meeting of $10,000.
May
I would recommend that the consideration on the contractors workshop be held in abeyance. That workshop normally happens in November. We can get together the cost of putting that together and bring it back to the board or see if it can be accommodated from within the existing funds. The recommendation on cutting the vehicle and the contractor's informational workshop was made by the building inspections department.
And Tim, could you just answer one thing? Is the assumption that that meeting occurs every year as part of the points, or is it a mandatory, it occurs every year, or it can occur on a less than every year frequency?
I'm not sure how that would affect it. I know that the grading happened over the years that we've had it for 7 years. He took all 7 agendas, he took all 7 records, and he compiled the information that we provided to people that we had here and the things that we did. It's a very, very intensive audit of your CRS program.
Okay.
I mean, myself personally, I believe the program is very effective. I stuck my nose in here for a little bit of it when it happened. And I like David's idea of maybe going back through and trying to find a way to make this happen.
I would, what I said was for the board to consider passing the budget, and then we'll scrub it subsequent to that and bring any increased costs back to you for a subsequent appropriation.
So would that mean that you're assuring us that you wouldn't cancel the meeting without coming back to the?
We're not going to cancel the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, because I did some homework, and there's we can scrub the budget, obviously. There's a lot of, whether not spent, leftover budget, or unencumbered balance, available, that we can do that. So I think if we have the assurance that we're going to do that, then I'm okay with that.
The one other one, I actually have 2 on page 21, the satellite telephone. We had discussions about those folks that were here and towers going down and not having communication. That's not good. A satellite telephone has so many benefits. I've used them before. I've used them in emergency situations when cell phone towers were down. I think we ought to reconsider that. I know they're expensive, and you hope to God you never have to use them, but it's one of those things. Last time, we certainly could have used one, during Florence.
I think I would suggest that we follow the same protocol as we just discussed with the other one, that we either vote this in or vote it down in total, and then we can make some adjustments in the budget or find some money at another. David might be able to find some money in the budget in another place without an appropriation.
I'd like to, that's fine, but because, if you look at Fund 10, there's, we've got budgeted decorations, advertisements. I've got one that's, we give $22,250 to donations, which I think is I have a hard time with, to be honest with you. We're taking money from taxpayers and then donating that money to different charities that the taxpayers are more than capable of donating their hard-earned money the way they want it, not the way we vote that they should do. But, so there is money, that's $22,250, so that would cover quite a bit. So, and there's money in, like I said, that decorations, advertisements, $500 for the flags, all kinds of unencumbered money in the budget that we should look at, tighten up the budget.
I'm gonna make a statement here. This budget is $17 million, and we're talking about the funding of some pamphlets and the cost of a day-long workshop and a $2,500 fund. I think that we can, I'd recommend to the board that you move forward with it and leave it up to the department heads and management in order to make it work.
I agree.
Is there a motion on the floor to approve the budget or not? I don't remember one.
No motion was made yet.
There is not.
No motion.
Well, if there's no motion made, I'm gonna move on to the next item on the agenda.
I just have one other comment on the police here, and maybe this is a typo. I think it's a typo. Uniforms in the budget message was $27,000, and I think what we're doing is reducing it by $10,200. And now, I guess, in the budget, it's $3,958. When I do the math, and maybe I did it wrong, right, it looks more like $16,800. So I just would like the town to go back and look at it.
Yeah, I think this page here, 21, is the wrong number on the reduction.
Okay. Yeah, I know something looked a little funny.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
I'd make a motion that we vote on the budget.
Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Now, let's have some official discussion. Is there any?
I will say that you mentioned on the contributions, the only feedback I've gotten is from people who say they don't think the town ought to be making their contributions for them. They would prefer to do it themselves. And I get the same thing in companies, that people say they don't want the company deciding for them what outfit's gonna get their money. They'd like to do that themselves. So I don't see that we get much benefit from that as a town, but we're spending the taxpayers' money. So I wouldn't mind seeing that come out, and that would cover some of these concerns that we have on the cost reductions.
I obviously agree.
And yet we had no public comment. And why did we sit through 5 budget meetings between February and May? I'm sorry, but, really, guys. The public has not commented to us officially about a concern about the donations. I don't know, some of the donations, as I recall, are to some of the support groups, the groups that give us safety support, but before we cut something, generally, we would go through it and discuss all of it. And again, we had 5 meetings and none of this was raised. We're now at the point of having an ordinance in front of us that we have a limited amount of time to react. Frankly, I don't get it.
Let me comment on that. I never knew until, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, that our general fund balance ratio was 65%. That's new to me, brand new.
It's an estimate.
I never knew that was an estimate. The last estimate that was in our budget workshops was 59%.
That's a real number.
Which, no, it was not. It was an estimate. The real number for 18-19, is the only way you can do that, was 63%. So one of our goals was to increase that, and we have. Very good job. But I didn't know that. I didn't know on page 21, all the adjustments that were going to be made to meet the revenue neutral, no new tax goal. So until the very end, we don't know the information to make decisions on. Those two are basic, two of our top 2 goals, that we are just getting this information now.
Well, let's be fair. The reason that we're getting the adjustments for revenue neutral is because we asked the town manager to do that since the last meeting. So we couldn't have that information during the process. And
I agree.
And there was some confusion that we admitted to at the last meeting when we told them we wanted it, no new taxes, but we're going to use the old tax rate, so.
I agree.
So
There was
that's a-
confusion, but we
and-
didn't know.
And, wait, let me finish, please. And we did have, and we did discuss, you discussed it earlier, about the contributions, our charitable contributions. So we knew those numbers. We're talking about those numbers now. And so either we can make adjustments to the budget. We just voted $200 and some odd thousand appropriation tonight. If we have to make an appropriation to do one of the things we're talking about, or shift money from one fund to another, we can do that. Tonight, we should vote on the package.
Yeah, I think there are a number of things I don't agree with, but then the board didn't hire me to make that decision. We hired the town manager. So while I don't like a lot of it, and I would change it if it were mine, right now, I think we ought to make the decision to decide to vote on the budget as total. And as we go along, if things need to be changed, we have a meeting to change the budget if we have to during the year.
So fair enough. For the $10,000, we had assurances that we would address that, and that wouldn't happen. So now there's a few other things that, the hurricane satellite phone, if there's just there's a few other things that, that need to be addressed that we have assurances on, I'll say okay. But we have these new things that aren't going to happen here for a reason. I mean, some decisions were made and proposed to us. And there's several of them that people aren't comfortable with. So if we have assurances we're going to address it, that's fine, because we know we have there's room in the budgeted items in Fund 10 that we can handle that.
Yeah, I would say my experience for the last 2 years is David has done a remarkable job of, at the end of the year, having one year 200,000, one 300,000 of excess income versus expenses, which we've built up from a very low number to a 60% for the fund ratio. So my guess is that he would be able to manage this again this year without losing a lot and still end up with a little bit of money in the bank.
I'll take that as a compliment.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. We've come a long way in the last 4 years.
Yeah, 17, 18 was 50%, 18, 19, 63, and now we're at 65.
Let's
That's
just hope we don't have a
Awesome.
hurricane.
right. And that's what we should be building up to, remember, our goal now is 100%, so in case we do have a hurricane, we got the money to handle that. That's what we asked for. So we can punt.
Any more discussion?
Go ahead.
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, well,
We're through discussing.
now, I will discuss, and I will tell everybody why, although I want us to vote on it, I will vote no on this budget. It has nothing to do with the adjustments that were made. It has everything to do with the tax rate. Last year, as we all know, I suggested that we lower the tax rate, give a 2% reduction because of the money we receive from FEMA. I'm not going to go through that whole thing again. The budget message last year included a 2% tax reduction, but that was voted down because we wanted to put, in addition to the $3 million we put into the sand fund, we wanted to put the $250,000 in. That was so. So we kept it at the 22 cents rather than lowering it to 20 cents last year. To me, that's a hidden tax because there is no argument. Nobody on this board that voted for that tax rate would have voted for 22 cents if they know the town was going to receive the FEMA reimbursement. Just wouldn't happen. The town manager wouldn't have asked for that much money if he knew we were going to have the reimbursement. So I see no difference at all between not giving back the money that we got from FEMA in a tax reduction and arguing that we shouldn't be taking any extra money because of the revenue neutral increase that we would have. The $260,000 that comes from the revenue neutral is the same $260,000 that the 2 cents last year would have given to the taxpayers. So my story is the same. We should have given the money back last year. We should give it back this year. And I see absolutely there's no consistency in my mind in not giving back the money, the 2% reduction because of the FEMA money. It's artificially keeping the tax rate high. It's exactly the same as if we took the $260,000 as a result of the revenue neutral increase, the reassessment, and then the revenue, not going revenue neutral. So.
But yet the $240,000 that we put into the sand fund, we went into the sand fund to, and I'm glad, we had plenty of money in there, but it's not the idea of having plenty of money, it's the idea of having dollars. Because that $288,000, right, where'd that come from? It came from the $240,000, all right? So, and I don't want to get into a debate about this, but, in this year's budget, right, how much money are we putting into the sand fund? After we said over a 10-year period of time, we'd put money into the sand fund every year. So when we have opportunities like this, we know what's going to happen. We know Mother Nature. We know that our neighbor next to us, to the east of us, without mentioning names, I was surprised to read the other day that they have a lot more money than I thought they did. When I thought originally, I heard that they didn't have money, but yet they ended up getting sand on Oak Island, and it's questionable whether or not they paid for that sand. I can go on and on and on about this, in that. So, once again, I was in favor, and I'm still in favor of the $240,000 put into the sand fund. And we just took out $288,000 out of it.
And just to respond to that, it's not a question about whether the money is well spent, it's a question of whether the money should be spent at all, and whether we're going to be consistent. Because I can sit here and tell you that if we didn't go revenue neutral, we could have used the $260,000 that we just talked about reducing. Here we are talking about, well, we should still pay for this, and we should still pay for that. We could pay for roads to be paved. We could do a lot of things with the $260,000. It doesn't change. We'll always be able to sit here and spend money. The fact of the matter is, If we're consistent and we don't want to raise taxes and we don't want to have any hidden costs, we should have reduced by the 2 cents. It's as simple as that. Not arguing whether it's a good use of money or bad use of money. It's just that we're taking money and we're acting differently under 2 circumstances that to me are identical. That's my position.
Yeah, my only comment is, one's a tax refund and one's a tax increase. They are different.
But Peter, could you sit here and tell me that you would have voted for the 22% tax rate if you knew that we were going to get all that FEMA money back?
I probably wouldn't, but what I know now is that we are now using that money to general fund balance and the,
Then we should.
and the B part fund balance.
Okay.
That's why I know more now. That's why I don't think it's wise to do a tax refund. And that's why I also am not in favor of a tax increase. So just a different,
Our positions are clear.
right, yeah.
We ready to move on? I think we're ready. Number 13.
There's a motion on it.
No, there's a motion.
We have to vote.
You're gonna vote on the budget.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
It's hard to keep up.
We load you to sleep.
All in favor of the motion to approve the budget as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no.
No.
It's 4-1. Motion carries. The budget is approved as submitted. Number 13, Mr. Clemens.
I'm sure y'all probably getting kind of bored now, but every month we have an update on Pump Station 4 construction upgrades. That's been seems like it's been 2 years in the past 12 months. As I reported last month, we pretty much wrapped up with everything at that project. Everything in the scope of work was complete. We actually had the final pay request from Leo Green at that time, and we were waiting on a proposal for some gas detectors to be mounted on those stations permanently. I got that proposal from Green Engineering, and actually we're in process, and now that's the last thing that we need to do to be complete, even though that's not part of the original project. But before we move on, and I'd like to say that we're putting a bow on that project, didn't have to go back. I do have one thing that I'd love to point out. I'm kind of concerned with the cooling system at those stations. I really don't know what that's going to. How effective they're gonna be until after we get into July and we get at the full capacity. Right now, it's seeming doable, but I'm in the 90s. The temperature, when I say 90s, 90 in there feels a lot different than 90 outside because I don't have the humidity level. I've actually been working with AirVac trying to do some pump tuning and stuff like that to see if we can get that temperature down because it's a pretty tough thing to kind of accomplish. It's basically like if you had a gas heater in a room running wide open. On the other side, you had the air conditioner running wide open. You was hollering the air conditioner weren't working. So we're kind of stuck in that frame right there. Other than that, I don't have the pay request in hand, but I've been told by Margaret that I think that Leo Green might have sent that today for the last pay request on that, and they should, matter of fact, there it is down there. That should pretty much wrap us up on that. That's really about all I got to say, other than hadn't had any major glitches. The heat's the one that kind of concerned me. Like I said, July hadn't got here yet. This is a unique community. Everybody goes to the beach and they stay all day, and everybody gets in the shower at the same time. And when that happens, that's when you see the temperature go up. So if I figure I'd deal with that, I'd be in good shape, I guess. Other than that, that's about all I got on that. If anybody's got any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Yeah, Chris, is it the schedule for number 3 to go through the summer with the construction?
Yes, sir, it sure
Will
is.
you run side by side and be able to switch over without shutting down?
We're hoping so. We really don't have any option at this point. We're kind of where we are. We're kind of running behind the 8 ball from where we were at last year this time.
Well, that's the next agenda item.
The contractor that we had last time done an exceptional job. We switched over and didn't have a glitch whatsoever, but, hopefully we can make that happen this time, even if it's later in the season when we flip over. I guess we'll just have to kind of wait that out as we go along and figure out how to handle that.
So Chris, is this your last, so you're tying a bow on it, number 4? And
I'm tying a bow on other than spending for this year on it, and like I said, I'm gonna have to monitor the cooling situation. It may be we have to have some kind of ventilation or something. What I'd like to see there is I'd like to see some kind of, ventilation that if the temperature exceeded a certain amount, that it could suck the heat out of the building, because really, I'm not after a room that I can hang meat in. I just want to make sure that the equipment don't catch fire or burn. It ain't nowhere we hang out in the daytime just taking
Yeah,
it
but
easy.
you're making the final payment, and then any other change is gonna be a change order, basically.
Yeah, it would actually have to,
Okay,
it would
so
be
we can tie a
changed.
bow on project 4. So maybe,
Project 4, but
maybe,
I just didn't want to come back in there next month and say, well, you know what, I told you everything was peachy and cream, but it's 120 degrees down there in that station, we gotta figure out how to handle it. I just wanted to kind of be upfront.
understood. I mean, I was project manager, it's hard to tie a
Yeah.
bow on it.
Yeah, that's
You know,
right.
it's never finishes sometimes, so, but.
Yeah.
Is that a learning you'll take forward to 2 and 3?
Do I?
Is that a design change that you might look for at 2 and 3?
Definitely, which there's gonna be some challenges that we can discuss. As a matter of fact, it's on the next,
So,
topic.
so let
for
me,
that.
before you do that, so can we switch then, next month, can we change it to, system number 3, you can report the statuses on?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely. That's what I want to make it.
okay.
Keep in mind, you can cool it off by opening the windows, but your neighbors don't like
Right. Okay, I'm done. We can switch if you want.
it. Yeah, we can go right ahead to.
Did we install the gas, you may have said it, the fugitive gases?
Parts
that
and
meter?
pieces are in, and the install is all we lack, which it shouldn't be too complicated.
Okay.
We're moving on to the next topic.
Yes.
I'm asking the board to consider awarding Green Engineering consideration agreement for structural mechanical work at Sewer Lift Station number 3 is outlined in alternative 2, Holden Big Sewer Study completed by McGill Associates in April 2017. Works also to include evaluate design and construction of possible force main interceptor at the corner of Ocean Boulevard West and Seagull Street. Contract amount is $311,805.
So my first question is, this is similar to 4, right?
It's
So
similar-
what was the engineering, what was the similar work for number 4
I think
amount?
look, in total, we spent probably $158,000 pump station for start to finish.
On the engineering?
On engineering, plan design, and the whole shoot match. But I will say this, we've used the numbers from that McGill study, and something in the McGill study that didn't take into consideration. They didn't take into consideration the noise, close proximity to the property. I mean, we're talking about a structure that's within 12 feet of the property line, and that's where the big contributing factor is in the price. I mean, I don't see how we can afford to, there's a lot of acoustical testing and stuff that goes in that to make sure we meet requirements. It's scary to me to think about we're gonna design a building that don't have a window in it. I mean, it may have, it appears to have one, but you can't have any windows in the building just to meet the sound requirements.
Sure.
So that's another deal on the cooling that I'm, sitting there thinking, nobody ever thought about it. I didn't think about that when you put the above ground, you're gonna have it open, but, that's where a big part of that cost comes in at.
Okay, fair enough. So you've used your knowledge that you acquired in doing number 4 in number 3. So we've been talking about that for a couple months now, which is a good thing.
If we'd have started off and we'd have done 3 and 4 all at the same time, I have a lot of, we've been buying a house and a piece of land next door. I think that was-
And that's why we did that, right? I mean,
Yes,
we wanted
sir.
to learn.
Absolutely.
Learn from one to another.
Yeah,
Fair,
that's exactly
fair
right.
enough. So that's why, this McGill, I think it's a base, but I would use less and less credence on that, and it sounds like you're doing that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
That's about well as I can explain it. If there's anything I missed or anything,
The other piece of it is, of course, is the interceptor, that, the evaluation of the force main interceptor there, because those considerations have to be taken in up front because they're not retrofittable, or they're a lot more expensive if you go in and retrofit.
I thought about taking that part out, but like David was pointing, which actually Leo's one that pointed out to me, if you don't plan for that now, if you decide to do that in the future, it gets real costly, because you have to do a lot of stuff that you've already doing, you'd be doing it twice.
I mean, I understand what the issue is. It's just that when you read Article 5 compensation and you look at the pump station 4 versus pump station 3, the 153 or 154,000 extra is described as construction administration supervision phase, which doesn't really bring across the issue that you've stated. So,
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, the number's right, it's just that it's difficult to see it as this
Yeah.
contract is written.
And then maybe we can talk a little bit further about the schedule. How confident are we in the summer build, basically, right? So you were going to start building on January 20th of 2020 and finish November 15th of 2020. So we're obviously building through the summer months.
I may end up having to get Leo to chime in on this, but my conversation with Leo, if I remember correctly, I think we can beat that schedule by a long shot. But if need be, we could wait to flip the switch till after we felt like it was safe. I mean, you gotta look, we're doing it in July right now, I mean, we're starting a whole lot later. I mean, I really don't know any other way to handle that ball game other than what we've got.
Well, I did see again that in this contract, they're giving 270 days for complete construction, and pumping station 4, I believe, was 180. So I just assumed the extra time was put in there because of potential delays during season or a hurricane or something, because of when we're starting.
So you're saying there's a possibility we would do maybe 100-day, which is about the season, right? Delay, if need be.
I'll tell you what.
I'm gonna interject something here. It's a good thing that we have the extra lots just down the street that is available to stage from. That's gonna be an issue that'll help out. We can never foresee what type of storm implications come out. We were very fortunate last year that it wasn't too awful bad, but not only is it the summertime, just the realities of getting up, getting back and forth up and down the road. That's in the middle of the island. It is not down at the west end, which is,
A lot more space.
I mean, it's further to get down there, but, there's just some realities of backing in and out of the road that it's gonna have to take place. Also, I would foresee that because of the acoustical issues that are gonna have to be accommodated, that a piece of that, and I'm probably speaking for Leo now, and I shouldn't do that, but, those are specific things, in addition to the interceptor. So this lift station is a different creature than the one that was down on the west end.
Those two things. So the other obvious thing about the schedules, right, we finished 4, and we're doing the engineering for 3 in, June. This schedule doesn't, so we got 2 to do next, right?
Yeah.
So this schedule doesn't jive with the engineering in the summer, like we're doing now, to then do the build, in off summer. So, you know where I'm going with this, right?
Well, you learn from all of them, and I may have a completely different take when we get through with this one.
Okay. So you put more,
We don't have a close proximity of neighbors to deal with at 2 as we do there, so I think the design will be a lot less sophisticated, but that's just
Okay.
matter of opinion to me.
Here comes Mr. Green.
We'll let the chief.
He gonna help us.
Let the chief there come here.
Fine.
Come here.
I just wanted to let everybody know that, this is longer, which is fine, it's, fair enough, but then it's gonna affect 2 as well. Okay.
Well,
The start, the engineering start and the construction and, the different phases.
I know naturally everybody wants to get through as quick as possible. My big thing is everything to be operational.
No, we wanna do it right. Yeah, I agree, we wanna do it right, and everybody should, understand why we're doing what we're doing.
I mean, this is the time to put the realistic table together. The
Yeah.
timeline.
If y'all done with me, I'm gonna let Mr. Green here have the floor here.
No, we're not done with you, Chris. That's,
Oh, it's okay.
Now, this station coming up has a different, challenge than before. I mean, we're 16 feet away from the adjacent house there. We're trying to keep 90 decibels of noise inside that building to, the ambient level, on the outside. Back in February, we started acoustical testing back in late February. So we know what the ambient conditions are out there in February with no traffic. We know that we've got a 40 decibel threshold that we're holding this contract to.
and it's gonna be similar to 4, so you know what the decibels of 4 are, right?
We know exactly what they are. We know what they are outside, we know what they are inside running. And we monitored the ambient conditions at 3 for 24-hour period
Okay.
for a couple of days. And so we know what the parameters are.
Okay, good.
Unfortunately, we're starting later than we started on 4, and we just can't put it in operation in the middle of the season.
Understood.
We understand, we appreciate, and the ventilation situation that we have. And we met with them down here a couple of weeks ago to discuss some ideas with how we're gonna address those. I think we've come up with a good solution there. Haven't gone over it with them yet. We're ready to get started and go forward.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I have a question, Evan. Obviously, the engineering cost for this lift station is much greater than the engineering cost for the 4. Can you give us a ballpark figure of how much it's going to increase the actual cost of building the lift station as opposed to the previous one?
It's gonna be significantly more. And I think we provided a cost estimate for that, have we not? I mean, the building, the structure itself, the concrete structure itself is gonna be comparable to what you did. Hopefully, we'll have a contractor as good as we had before. But the enclosure for the pump station, the pump, is going to be significantly more. How much, I can't tell you, the market now, construction market now, has gone through the roof. We're a year and a half later for that. It could be 25%. We don't have a lot of competition. We didn't have a whole lot of competition before, and I doubt we'll have any more than we had then. We'll start advertising earlier, we'll start contacting potential bidders earlier, to promote the interest in the work. And we anticipate it costing more.
So do we have enough, we have the money in the sewer fund balance to cover this and number 2?
We've made the appropriation in this year's budget to, based on the program estimate for 3, and we'll have to decide on what the level of comfort is on funding lift station 2. I am going to recommend that the commissioners evaluate whether they would like to assume some more debt in order to pay for it, or would they rather have, take their fund balance down. I don't know if that answers your question. It's going to be dependent on how comfortable the commissioners are with decreasing the water and sewer fund balance. And also, as Leo said, we don't know how much that market play is going to take to do 3.
Okay.
Chris didn't mention this, but we did bring this last project in below budget. So we delivered a final adjusted change order of less than what the original contract was signed. Hopefully we can do that on the next.
Okay, so
So
we
you
have
still,
to,
I just want to ask a question still on the design. So the design is still to eliminate that well at number 4?
Yeah, that interceptor you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd like to see, maybe talk a little bit about the risk versus what are the risks associated with that? Are there any risks associated with that? What are what's the favorable things?
When you say risk, you're talking about risk if you don't do it.
Right.
Well, you've always got safety issues, somebody around a wet well that size right there, you have odor issues that you get a lot of complaints with in the years, time. When you figure the replacement cost of the wet well and the pumping equipment that's associated with that, just off the top of my head, Leo, you can probably, correct me if I'm wrong, you're probably talking about $40,000 worth of pumps just sitting in the hole right there that you wouldn't need.
So I think we've gone over what some of the advantages are, but I'm saying that from an engineering perspective, are there any risks associated with that?
Biggest advantage is the odor issue we've had at that pump station before.
Right.
It will completely eliminate that.
Right.
We've addressed it in the project that we just finished, but this will completely eliminate it.
Mhm.
You don't have that problem at 3, but you, with that open pit, I say open, it's vented, and from time to time you get odors in that area.
Mhm.
This will completely eliminate that.
Right, I like that.
so, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. It would be a wonderful thing, as we travel eastward, if we could do the same thing at pump station,
1.
1.
So you're reading my mind. So are the lessons, can we do some lessons learned and understand what we do to number
I like the idea.
4 to number 1? Would that be applicable?
This is an
I just
issue
don't know
from
if there's
the
any
original
risks.
design. I don't completely understand why it was done that way. We would not have done it the way they did it. We would not have had an open wet well at 1 or 4.
So you're trying to engineer 4 to not have a wet well,
4 has the wet well and 1 has the wet well.
but I think,
The interceptor is you'd be bypassing that well, you wouldn't be utilizing it.
right, so we could close it, right?
Right.
And we wouldn't have the odor.
What you're doing now, you're pumping from 3 to the wet well at 4,
Understand.
and then from the wet well at 4
Right.
across the waterway.
Basically back to 3,
So
right?
you're double pumping.
Right.
We're gonna eliminate any double pumping, we're gonna eliminate any odor at number 4, if you go forward with it.
So again,
Same way with 1.
you could potentially do it with 1.
You're gonna
If it's successful in
eliminate
3 and
any other
4.
problems originating there at 1.
Okay?
And that might be the only thing you do at 1.
Oh, totally agree. Yep,
I mean, you don't have the flooding issue there at 1.
totally agree.
We're gonna learn a lot before we get to 1.
It's worth doing it just to see if we can get it to work for 1.
If you look at all your budgets for the 4 stations that were presented in the original review report, you might come out less than what was in that for all 4 stations.
Yep, understood.
So the biggest opportunities, I'll call them opportunities, are the costs additional costs, not knowing what they are at this point, and the acoustics.
Okay,
Okay.
so do we need,
Board needs to approve this contract.
yeah, I move we approve this contract?
Anybody second it?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
Thanks, Chris.
Contract's approved, sir. Yay. Mr. Evans.
About, I don't know, sometime in the past, 3, 4 months ago, maybe 5, I gave this presentation at the planning board. It was well received there. I was younger by 5 months. Lots happened in my life since then. I've become a grandfather. My middle son got married. I forgot to put this on the agenda, then I got sick. But anyway, it's on there now, and as soon as I find it in this packet, I guess I'll talk about it.
Page 51.
Yeah, as y'all know, in the past, we've had a lot of discussions about large homes and home regulations and home size. And as y'all know, in the past, I debated rigorously about whether we should do something one way or the other. My biggest concern was how to be fair and equitable. Over the years, I had the opportunity to spend time with people a lot smarter than me from other towns, because everybody knows that we're not the smartest here. And I learned a lot from talking to them and found out what they were doing, and I discussed with some of the planners in other areas of what they were doing, and I found out some of the stuff, and I tried to apply it here, and I presented it to the planning board, and like I said, I feel like it was well received there. Now, whether I can put it out there with the same eloquence tonight that I have had in the past, I don't know, because I studied it for about 4 months on the board in my office before I presented it. Anyway, it's actually an ordinance that tries to maximize the amount of square footage that we can have in a structure on the beach while being fair and equitable to everybody across the board while we're doing it. And basically, when we start to do this, we're gonna see some things that it does and some of the things that it affects. And the ordinance, if we choose to put it in an ordinance form, which it really should have been in already, but I assume that there might be some tweaks or some things that people want to change, or you might want to send it back down. But it basically makes the maximum house size on Holden Beach at 6,000 square feet. That's it. You'll never be able to have a house again that's more than 6,000 square feet. It has progressive setbacks, which means that we're going to start at a square footage, and as we go up into the square footage, the setbacks are going to increase. And what that means is that if you choose to have one of the bigger houses in this system, then you're going to be required to sit further away from property lines so you have less effect on your neighbors. Okay? It's going to decrease storm debris and stormwater discharge through a reduction in the size of these structures. And basically, this same ordinance, while it increases the setbacks as the house gets larger, what it's going to do is actually decrease the amount of impervious area that they can have on footprints as the home's allowed to get larger. It should, because the houses can't be 8,000 to 9,000 square feet, it should help reduce some parking density, because you're not going to have a house that's big enough to accommodate a tremendous amount of people. Should help with traffic reduction in the future if we choose to implement it. Should improve quality of life. If you end up with one of the large houses next to us, we've heard numerous times what happens to your quality of life. Should increase lots and open space, which again affects other things, and it should decrease potential secondary storm debris, because there won't be as much house to be a problem. The current lot the current lot coverage. The current ordinance allows for 30% of lot coverage everywhere. The setbacks for residential dwellings now are 25 feet front, 20 feet in the rear, and 5 feet on the side, which means it doesn't matter how big a house you have, that's where you can actually place it on the lot and build to that extremity. The parking currently is 9 by 20 spaces and are required to have 1 per bedroom. Our proposed regulations would change that based on the square footage of size of the house. A home that's less than 4,000 square feet would be allowed to have a front setback of 25, a rear of 20, a side of 5, and then have a stormwater impervious area coverage of 30%. If it's 4,000 to 5,000, the front setbacks will be increased to 30 feet, the rear to 25, the sides to 7, and the stormwater to 25%. If it's 5,000 to 6,000, then the front yard setbacks will increase to 35 feet, the rear to 30, the side to 10, and the stormwater to 20. Now, before people start losing their minds, you couldn't have a 6,000 square foot house on the same size lot that you can have a 4,000 on. You never could. So you're not losing anything. You're not going to be able to put a 6,000 square foot house on one of our 50 by 100 lots, which is the major of our lots. You never could. So they're not being penalized at all whatsoever, which is the greatest portion. The larger homes that used to be put on these larger sites, they were limited to 30% anyway, so there's no real big reduction there either. It's only stopping them from building a massive structure and going all the way to those setbacks. So, and the current parking requirements is 9 by 20. The proposed new ordinance would make them 10 by 20. And what happens is we can't limit the number of bedrooms in a house, but you got to have X amount of parking for each bedroom. So if you're going to build a house and have 10 bedrooms, then you're going to be limited by your parking ability. In other words, you're not going to be able to build it. We can't tell you how many bedrooms, but we can tell you you got to have at least 1 parking space for each one, which would then can't limit them, but you got to have enough parking places. That's the best way to say that. All right. This next, if you can see this next slide, if I can explain it, it basically lays out what we have here. Now, most of our houses are under 4,000 square feet here. We may have had 4 that were more than that in a year, that were somewhere a little over 4,000. We may have that many. And we may have had 5 houses bigger than 5,000 square feet in 10 years. So if you see, this really isn't affecting anything. The only thing it's stopping is these mega houses from basically pointing a finger at us and saying, they don't have a rule, that's where we can go. Okay? So it's really not changing the dynamics of what's been done on this beach. All right? So if you look at this chart, most of our lots are 50 by 100. You could have 30% before of impervious coverage, and you could have had a structure of 3,000 square feet. Under this ordinance, you can still have that. You couldn't cover more than that ever because of the 30% impervious rule. If you have a bigger lot, if you have one that's say 50 by 200, then under the old impervious rule, you could have had 3,000 square feet or up to a 6,000 square foot house. Under the new rule, and you would have those normal setbacks. You would have a larger house sitting near the setbacks. They could put it anywhere they wanted. They weren't required to center. And so the new rule would require them to have 7-foot setbacks on the side, increase the front and the rear setbacks, and it would limit them to a 5,000 square foot house. The old was 3,000 square foot. The old one was 6,000 square feet. If you go up to the next size, then under the old one, they could have had a 9,000 square foot, and they would be maxed out at 3,000. Now, if you'll notice, someone with a 50 by 100 square foot house can't have a 6,000 square foot house. But someone with one of the huger, larger lots can. So we're not stopping people from doing things they couldn't do before.
We're only limiting the maximum size of these houses and increasing these setbacks and decreasing the impervious area. So anyone that could build a 6,000 square foot house before can build a 6,000 square foot house now.
Just need a bigger lot.
They just need a bigger lot. And anyone who could have built our normal 4,000 square foot to 5,000, those 4 we may have had a year, they would have needed a bigger lot anyway because they wouldn't have been able to fall inside the 30%. The only thing that we're doing is that we are making the homes fit better on the lots. We're being fair across those lots and fair to what was already there. And if you look at what the values were compared to that number in the middle is the value of what you can build under this ordinance that we're proposing compared to the value of what you could have built on that house before based on the percentage. So so if you weigh the potential for a better community against what we lose in ad valorem taxes, you can say that people will want to come build here and we're not going to look unattractive if we have a whole bunch of big houses. So I think it's a good fix for the problem. I like the way it lays out. I think it's fair across the board. If you've got a lot that allows you to build a 6,000 square foot house, you can build a 6,000 square foot house. It allows you to build a bigger house. You could build a bigger house before. You can still build a bigger house. You just can't build the big when you want it. And I think it really does work. I know they're using it at other places. The progressive setbacks and the progressive impervious area is a little different, but I think it's important for us. I would have liked to have done the CRS report earlier, and I could have told you why some of this stuff is important, but it's important to us. Additional possible regulations, I don't remember if these were popular with the planning board. I think they may have, I can't remember, were they popular? Okay. The additional possible regulations were buffers from parking with more than 5 parking spots or at dwellings, that we could come up with a way to have buffers. If they've got more than 5 parking places, then they would have to have some kind of more distance for those parking places. And one of them was 10% of unbuildable areas in front of dwellings to be designated landscaping only, which could act like that, which is really a minimal area. It would be like the setbacks coming all the way forward. Do you follow what I'm saying? We tell them they have to keep the house that far away from the property line, but then we let them park, with their tires on their neighbor's property. Or parking only allowed in the travel areas used for the seaward most parking spots, and that would mean that instead of being able to park over here in the edge of that right of way, they would have to park in a line with whatever parking spaces that they had. And which also goes again to some other things that were in the CRS that could be helpful long term, 5 years from now or whenever. But this ordinance has been well thought out. I promise you, it's been well thought out. And it's been before the planning board, and the planning board well received it. I think it was a unanimous that they liked the way this was laid out. I think it's up to you whether y'all want to accept parts of it or pieces of it, but I would definitely accept the body of it and change the parking places from 9 by 20 to 10 by 20. Those are the things that I, as staff, would recommend, but the planning board liked it all. So.
I have a question. For those houses that currently are greater than 6,000 square feet, would they be allowed to build back, say if they burned?
I would recommend that if you've got a non-conforming house, once this ordinance is passed, if you've got a non-conforming house, that unless it's substantially damaged or substantially improved, that it be allowed to be non-conforming, which means that if you need to completely remodel it or repair it, you know what I mean, that it could be, as long as it didn't add to the non-conformance, it would be forever grandfathered. If a storm came in and wiped it out, it would have to comply just like all the other FEMA guidelines, because the federal guidelines are going to kick in and say that if it's more than 50% damage, then it's going to have to be rebuilt back to the current regulations. But as long as they have it, you know what I mean, and as long as they want to repair it, you know what I mean, they definitely can't get bigger because it's already non-conforming. But they should be able to keep what they have if they need to do major repairs for that sort of stuff. And this ordinance wouldn't do anything but just make them non-conforming and that's just a non-conformance law in place. That's the same thing you got with all of them out there now that don't conform with your current ordinances. If you got a house out there that don't conform with your current ordinances, they're allowed to stay, they can repair them, they can do all that stuff, but if they get 50% damage or want to 50% improve them, they can't. You know what I mean? They can't add to that non-conformance. So that's there's current rules in place that protect those existing structures, I guess is what I'm saying.
I have two questions for you, Tim. The last time you were going to present this, you withdrew it because there was some concern that you had that the rules would make some of the lots that are out there unbuildable.
No, that was different. That was the
Different issue?
commercial, that was the commercial ordinance that we have yet to go back and take a look at. This is totally different.
Okay. Have any of these regulations that you're proposing, changes, have they been put in place in other communities, and have they
I know
been
that-
challenged?
I know that Oak Island has looked at them and I think they've had them in place and they've not had an issue. It's been my understanding that there was not an issue. As far as people having problems with building to that size.
Right. But we don't know if anybody's challenged them
I
and
don't know
whether the
if
decision
anybody's
has
challenged them.
come down to support it.
So you're not proposing the additional possible regulations, right?
Well, I'm saying that they are additional. They're possible, but
Future.
they like them. And I only put them in there because I thought that they might be something that the town wanted to look at, and I presented them to the planning board the same way, but they liked them.
Okay.
They liked the whole thing, as a matter of fact. I may have done a better job of presenting it back then because I was a lot smarter.
So does it make sense then to come back, you can either go to the planning board or do it before,
I think-
as an ordinance format?
I think it needs to be put into an ordinance format.
Right.
It should have been that way when it's brought here. David told me not to bring it in this form, and I guess when I put it on the agenda last time, I didn't follow through.
No, this is great.
I appreciate seeing the raw
Yeah,
form.
it's-
Yeah. That's
It's,
great.
it's easier to understand in this format, actually, so it's a nice step towards the ordinance
David
form.
is right, it should be in a form that y'all
Understood.
can see it.
Yeah, yeah.
Understood. So I think the next step is to put in an ordinance format. So does it make a sense to go to the planning board to help you do that? Or assist you to do that, or not?
I think the planning board sent me up here with the intentions of y'all voting on whether or not this becomes an ordinance or not. I don't think they don't care to.
We did, we voted in favor of it. We liked it, because it's something we've been looking at. It's been an issue for years.
Yeah.
And he, do I need to go to the microphone?
I was just going to say, the proper administrative procedures had the staff to develop a proposed ordinance text and have the attorney review it and bring it back to the next convenient meeting.
I like that.
Okay, I mean, my question is, let staff do it, or go back to the planning board, either way, whatever you're comfortable with.
We can interject it into the ordinance where it belongs and put the proper numbers on it
Staff.
and send
Okay.
it off to her.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Then do we need to move that we request that Tim
I think so, yeah.
prepare, yeah. Then I would move that we have plannings and inspection prepare an ordinance around this description for house size limitations to provide to the attorney before it comes back to the Board of Commissioners, and that this be done in a timely fashion. I'm not gonna say ASAP, but in a timely fashion.
I second.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimous.
Good job.
Rating system, Mr. Evans?
All right, in 2011, 2012, somewhere in there, 2014, we had a CRS evaluation. It was under their old rules and regulations. Most of the stuff that's been in place, they go back X amount of years, usually as far as they can go. And they take a look at our community and how it's set up. At that point in time, we were
3 years into the BSEG from the previous inspector, which is your building code evaluation, which is part of your CRS. So it got used for your last CRS evaluation. At the same time, there wasn't a whole lot of focus on the CRS. There wasn't a whole lot of interaction with what we should do and what we shouldn't do. After that evaluation was done, we immediately set in on trying to help the town get some points through the building inspection department, through the planning department. One of the first things we did was we implemented the higher requirements for design flood elevations, and we implemented them across the board. We were lacking in that area compared to all other communities. The next thing that we did was, prior to that year, we had already implemented outreach programs of different types, one of which was the contractor's informational meeting. At that particular time, we did not understand how important it could be in the future, and it really did have relevance, but not to the extent that it does now, because they've changed the guidelines, and outreach is one of their big things. During the CRS rating, we were, you can take my word for it, or somebody can call Rhonda a liar, but we were informed that, that our auditor informed us that he had only ever seen one other BSEG rating as low as ours, and it was in Santa Ana, California, and it was a 2.2. When ours was done, when they came and evaluated me, my education, the work that I've done, the things that we do, how we operate the office, the records that we keep, we went from a 7 to a 3. That evaluation is done by ISO, which is the same people that does your CRS rating, and they will share that with them as far as points. At the same time, if the town, at the same time the gentleman did our evaluation, he went through everything we had, and he told us at that time that there's a good chance that we won't get better, but that we won't get worse. But he still had to go to a third party to do an evaluation. And at that time, he basically gave us the information that we needed to go forward with what it would take to possibly get it lower. Hopefully, I'm like the guy or the kid that went out for the baseball team. You know you're as good as everybody else, you know what I mean? But you got to rely on the coach being able to see your talent. And I'm kind of hoping that when they do the tally that ours may go down, may not. We did a lot of things. We worked very hard to try to get it lower, but they changed the rules. And some of the rules that they changed, we have no control over. One of those rules is that you're going to have, if you want to get maximum points and get lower, you're going to have an island-wide alarm system that tells every citizen and on this beach when something bad's going to happen. I talked to Justin over at Ocean Isle. Me and him's on the same. When you put more emphasis on the storms coming than what you do before the storm gets here, we're not real sure how that's happening. If we don't limit the open space under our houses or the closed-in spaces under our houses to less than 299 square feet, 299 square feet or less, you're not going to get any points. Our height thing that we wrote gave us a lot of points. A lot more points than we would have normally had when we changed the way we measured height, and we put the DFE in there. When we did it, we required both the A zones and the B zones to be measured at the same point. We got credit for that, a lot of credit. But until we make everybody here build the same in A zones that they do to B zones, probably not going to get enough points. That means you're going to have to add that to your ordinance and tell everybody that's in the A zone they got to build to the same standard as the B zone. You want your rating and you get lower, you're going to have to get tougher. And I can tell you right now, everybody already hates Tim Evans. But you're going to have to get tougher. And I can't do it. I've enforced every rule I can. I've made sure everything was done the way it was supposed to be done. You're going to have to put money in the pot, and you're going to have to get tougher. And if you ain't willing to take the heat, don't throw me out there. Because I'm fed up to here. I've done everything I can do for this town. Everything. I can't do no more. I'm busted. Just like the budget. Just like that budget. I can tell you right now, I didn't choose to cut the CRS program. I was told I was going to be cutting my budget. And I would cut my budget. And I asked, point blank, do I cut major services or do I cut the extra stuff? And I was told to cut the extra stuff. So I cut the truck and the CRS program. I didn't choose to cut it. We went to 5 budget meetings. My budget was out there. What I don't understand is why I wasn't told what to cut. I don't understand that. I gave you my budget. I said, this is what I need. And I missed a meeting and come back and was told I had to cut my budget. So I cut it. But I didn't choose to cut those things. Those were things that I felt like I needed. The CRS program, the Contractors Informational Meeting, I want everybody to know here, that was my idea. That was something I brought here. It was not something that was being done to help lower your CRS rating. It's something I chose to do. It was something extra that we put on our own plate. And we did it. I've done all I can do.
Mr. Sullivan from 17.
Okay. On May 31st, I attended a seminar that was given in conjunction with the North Carolina Coastal Federation, UNCW, and the North Carolina PFAS Testing Network. It had to do with PFAS, which are per and polyfluoroalkyline that are in the water system, Gen X and other chemical compounds. And it was interesting, very interesting. I only printed out one of the presentations. There were 5 or 6 different areas that they spoke about, but to print those all out would have been who knows how many pages. If anybody wants the website, I can give that to them. But the long and the short of it, if you've grabbed the documents that are in the back there, is that back in 2013, a professor, Kneff, he actually pronounced his name Kneff, was doing some research and found Gen X. The initial time they found Gen X, they published it in a journal, and that started the ball rolling on chem wars and what to do. The problem we had is, we all know the politics of it and the legalities of it. They really didn't push chem wars too hard. But in 2018, the state of North Carolina gave $5 million to this North Carolina Collaboratory, a cute word for 6 or 7 universities getting together, working in conjunction with the state. And the universities had the type of equipment that could do the readings and the testing that the state was incapable of doing, and it was more economical. So anyway, they go out now and they test 20 public water supply systems in 11 counties in North Carolina, and also private wells and water supply systems. They go all over the state, continually do it. The interesting factor is they test for about 20 compounds when there are actually about 500 compounds out there. So you don't even know what you don't know. But they do test for Gen X, and since this was discovered, and since they did finally get Chemours to stop putting their waste into the the river and the watershed area, it's negligible. They believe that what they want to have as a level, a safe level, is, I wrote it somewhere. 140 nanograms per liter, or 0.14 parts per billion, negligible. And that if that type of level is kept, they don't see how exposure to Gen X would be harmful in our lifetime, in a life. It is cumulative. I mean, there were interesting things. They found that despite the fact that Gen X is almost non-existent now in the water supply system, the people who live in the areas have high levels of Gen X because it accumulates in your body. They also had somebody who gave a presentation saying that the filter that you have on your refrigerator helps remove some of it, but it depends on, they say, the longer the carbon or the longer the molecule, the harder it is for a filter to work. Obviously, if you don't take care of your filter, it's not going to work either. So, yeah, if it would behoove us all to change our water filters when they're supposed to be changed. It's not a positive cure for it, but it does help to lessen it. And let's see, one of the other things is firefighters. The foam that they use at fires goes into the ground, high levels of the polycarbons. And also from a plant that's carried in the air, and you get it in wells. They do concentric circles, they check. Clearly, the closer you are to the manufacturing plant, the air, the more it is. But the deeper you dig the well, the better chance you have of not having these things present. So there were just a ton of information. It was interesting, and I thought it good to, we had a lot of talk about this, I guess, about a year and a half ago, and we haven't heard much about it since then. At least I hadn't heard much about it since then. We're all in Food Lion buying water, and it's up to you to decide whether you want to continue to buy water or whether you will rely on their finding. There's a chart here which shows the various chemical compounds and how much was in the water just a short while ago, and then how it's almost negligible. Let's see, page 71. You can see that if you look at the chart, it doesn't show any Gen X as of October 17. Different PFM, OAA, whatever the heck, maybe Pat can tell me what that is, but that's still present, but no Gen X. So, as I said before, if anybody wants all of the slides, I'd be glad to supply them. However, it seems like the collaboratory and the testing and working with the state and having Chamois stop their dumping, it's been pretty successful at this point. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Fennell, number 18.
There is the one vacancy on the Inlet and Beach Protection Board. You interviewed 2 people today, and there's one who's also interested, Irving Woods, that has already interviewed. You could vote by ballot or out loud, whatever's easier for you guys.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Ballot. While the clerk is running the computers to tabulate the numbers, can we go on to number 19? Do what?
I think that's me too.
Yeah, I was gonna say that
I'm not that
together.
smart to talk and count at the same time.
She's got three things tonight.
Okay, congratulations to Dr. Timothy Gibble. All right, you're still up.
Okay, in July, there's vacancies on the Board of Adjustment, Parks and Rec Board, and Planning and Zoning Board. The Planning and Zoning Board vacancies and the Parks and Rec, those members are eligible to serve again. Stephen Baker on Board of Adjustment is not eligible, so we could do it two ways. You guys could vote right now if you want to keep the members who are interested to stay, and then I could just advertise for BOA, or I could advertise for everything, whatever the pleasure of the board is.
I propose we do the first option.
Keep the remaining members. Does that, do you want to vote on that? Is that consensus?
What's your pleasure?
It's my proposal, do the first option. Any, agreed? No?
Well, am I looking, people are expiring in July?
That's correct.
Yeah. I think, I have no problem renominating the people, but I think there might be other people who would like an opportunity to apply, and we could just vote on it in July, give people an opportunity and then vote on it in July. If nobody new comes up, we'll just let the people who want to be on it stay on it.
I'm fine with that, too.
Sounds like a plan.
Either way.
Okay, so is the board okay with me scheduling another meeting at 6:45?
Right.
Sure.
All right. You're still up on number 20, I believe.
Okay, at the March meeting of the Board of Commissioners, the board voted to have staff develop the new records retention and disposition schedule, including the discretionary time period. So we did that, and I included them in the packet, and I put a short version in the packet also. We would suggest that the board approve the schedule and allow the staff to enforce internal policies setting minimum retention records or periods for the record that DNCR has scheduled with the disposition instruction, destroy when reference value ends. That would just, if we find that we need to change any of the ones that we put in there, give us the freedom to do so.
Okay, when you talk about destroying, does that mean that electronic and hard copy are destroyed?
It depends what it is in the schedule. Like some of them, like minutes, I can never destroy are actual minutes. But copies of minutes, they're in there. That's the shorter ones that are in there. Each item that we destroy has to be in that schedule, and if it's not, then we have to go to the state to ask permission before we can destroy it. So yes, I mean, it depends what the actual record is.
The reason I ask is it was, I see agenda and meeting packets 1 year. That's,
That's the additional information. I have agenda packets from far before I was ever working.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, it's, if you go into the thick packet that I gave you, it described what it's talking about for each and every part of it, but that's mostly like duplications and the stuff that I make the agenda with.
okay.
So we would just need.
So I move we adopt that schedule.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous, Madam Clerk. Town Manager's Report, Mr. Hewitt.
Yes, sir. Looks like we've got the asphalt down on the paving job for Sand Dune, Sandpiper, and Sand Spur. I think there's some shoulder work that remains to be done, but this, I believe, is the 4th year running that we've been able to get our 10-year street maintenance program taken care of and not interfere with the Memorial Day holiday. Our classification and pay study that's being conducted by the MAPS group, they've completed all of the staff interviews. Now they're in the process of comparing those with the most relevant jobs markets. As a reminder, this classification and pay plan study will update or propose updates to the pay plan, position descriptions, and also provide a benefits comparison evaluation. That, all of those should be ready for the manager, my review after the end of the fiscal year, with the goal to bring it to the board with a couple of passes. So you guys are going to get a briefing of it, then it'll be left to lay with you, and then a subsequent follow-on for any implementation you may wish to carry forth with. As a note, this year's budget includes a 3% merit pool. Those employees that have evaluations that fall in that time frame whereby they may be affected by any changes to their classification pay plan, we will dovetail those evaluations with their with any changes that may be proposed. On the hurricane damage repair projects, I colloquially call it the flow mic, because that's a marrying of both of those two events into one project. Those project worksheets for that estimated $25 million project are currently in the environmental queue with the feds, and we will just wait and prompt them frequently to see whenever it comes to us, then we'll move out on scoping our project that will resort from that approval process. In the meantime, we're moving out with the sand search, offshore sand search, and our update of the permits that will be required in order to carry out the forthcoming project.
So that started already?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The RMS internal control follow-up that I am on the hook for, as previously briefed to you. We've made inquiry to what the status of a final, something similar to a final, would be to both the project manager, the program manager, and the project officer. I have not received response to my inquiry. We have received a bill for the remainder of our contract. I'm withholding payment until we receive a final on that report. Nevertheless, we've gone ahead and proceeded with some of the items in that report, like procuring and having our 2 staff members receive CAFR training. They've been to class on that, and as well as including some of the personnel-related actions, revising some of the staff responsibilities in the MAPS position classification pay plan that relate to internal controls for certain personnel actions and disbursements in general. Ironically, last week, the Local Government Commission has issued a guidance memorandum for the performance of audits for the upcoming fiscal year, audits that will be performed on budget years that end for local government units with budget years that end in 30 June of 2020. Specifically, it addresses several of the issues raised by the RSM draft, and we will rely on and follow the Local Government Commission's guidance to implement the best management practices during the upcoming fiscal year. On canal dredging, we have received our final large reimbursement from the Shallow Draft Inlet Navigation Fund. There's a couple of small repair and cleanup issues, not the dredge spoil area, but just small dot ding kind of fixes that we have to do. The Scotch bonnet issue is going to take a while to dry out, and I'm not making light of that, but it's just the reality of the circumstance. That's not an overnight fix. So I'm like Chris, we're going to put a bow on that one and call it done. But I would be remiss if I didn't speak to the canal dredging working group and some of the history behind that. Specifically, these type projects are not, you don't just do these projects like you get a Happy Meal from McDonald's. They have long lead times. There are multifaceted pieces of it. There's changing regulations. There are a number of nuances relating to it, but some of the longer-lived issues or actions that were taken, and I'll just call them out, recent interpretations by the Corps that would not allow us to place dredge spoils in Corps-owned or Corps-controlled spoil areas. If the town had not had the foresight to secure the land for the Scotch Bonnet and Greensboro sites 9-10 years ago, this project would have not been possible. And I know that the town took some heat on the acquisition of that property, but that one item is illustrative of a long lead time action that was specifically and solely, there are some other details, responsible for being able to do that project. There are other local governments up and down the coast, even private enterprise marinas, that have not been able to get their yacht basins dredged. They have not been able to take care of their canal dredging projects. They've missed out on grant money. They've missed out on the economic engine that our boating community puts forth because of this one specific thing. And if it were not for the foresight of the town leadership at the time, we would have missed out on about $750,000 in grant funds. That actual grant was approved at significantly more than that, but we did not reach that threshold on the cost. It was a favorable bid environment. Specifically, Mayor Allen Holden was responsible for suggesting that the canal dredging working group be assembled when I first got here. And thanks to some of these guys are still around, some of them have moved on, but Lewis Mitchell, Dennis Harrington, Al Yetman, Bill Geddes, Joe Colquitt, Robbie Bryant, Rob Collins, Bobby Brown, and Rick Parfus is the most recent arrival to that group. All of those guys have, I guess we need to get a girl on there too at some point in time. Of course, Dolly, you're a default there. Yeah. All of those people have contributed immensely to the making sure that those canals are taken care of the way they should be. And then with that, I'm finished.
Any questions? Mayor's comments are brief as we enter the hurricane watch season and hopefully no-go hurricane season. I and some of the town officials have attended the most recent training available and feel like that we are on the right track and being prepared for emergencies, and feel good about the relationship we have with local communities and the county And we just hope we don't have to use all that knowledge that we've earned and worked hard to get. So with that, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem John?
Other than thanking you for coming to the meeting and participating in a 2.5-hour meeting, just a quick update. If you're not paying attention to the beach right now, you might want to take a walk and find out how many turtle nests there are from the east to the west. As of this morning, we dug nest number 52. We're 3 weeks into the season, and last year we had 30 nests total for the year. So we think we'll probably overrun the 2013 limit of 73 nests. And it's a lot of work right now. We had five turtle nests laid last night. Interesting, Tuesday's the turtle nesting day. Every Tuesday's had a lot. Not one turtle has laid an egg on a Sunday. So we're presuming they're all religious. They're laying off on Sunday. So starting about the 1st of July, you'll have hatching, and we think probably we'll have hatched the first one before the 4th of July. So if you get a chance, get out and enjoy that.
Mike? Of course, like to thank everybody who came to the meeting tonight, but I'd especially like to take a minute to thank all the volunteers and all the people on the committees, and especially at this time of year, the Beautification Club. I mean, when you come over the bridge, up till last week, it was beautiful on the other side, but Paget Park, it's beautiful. The plantings that are all around the town hall over where they just recently put the monument to the turtle, it really makes the town look good, and I appreciate all the hard work that you do to make the town look good. Thank you.
Ms. Pat?
Good to be back. Apologies for missing last month's meeting. Every other year I go over to Europe and visit my friends from when I lived there, and if you go for a month, there's just no way not to miss. I was particularly sad, though, to miss when Pointer Spruill came in. I hope everybody got a good feeling for everything that they're doing for us and with us. I was at the meetings in D.C. with them, with the town manager and the assistant town manager, and I can tell you that they are really bringing value, and they're very helpful in helping us plan for however we can try to get support and funding for various things. So just wanted to, since I wasn't here last month, I just wanted to say they are doing a good job, and they were really, really helpful in D.C.
Joe?
I'd like to really pay particular attention to the great staff that we have, and regarding the budget and all of their personal dedication. But I've had the opportunity to work with a number of the folks, too. And it's not easy to work with the Corps. And if the Corps was here, I'd say it to their face, too, as well, believe me. And so, I mean, and then the Engineering and Inspection Department, I got involved in an issue on the east end of the island with a homeowner. And I got to tell you, you know, going into the inspection department, hearing the owner's side and then hearing the inspection department side, no comparison whatsoever. So, you know, it really opened up my eyes to really what a difficult job. I'm not saying all the public, and I'm not saying you folks at all, because you're here, you want to be here, right, and you want to participate. But we have some people that are just unbelievable what they say, and how they treat us is pathetic. But enough said about that. Maintenance, roads, lift stations, I mean, you know, we've got it covered here. Police, great job. That, I mean, you know, I'm seeing tickets now written. There was a car that was blocking during Memorial Day, was on the blacktop. It was towed. That, I mean, things happening. I mean, nobody wants to see that happen, and I'm not saying we should write tickets, you know, and that. But we're sending a message, you know. If fire department had to get through there, they wouldn't have been able to get through there that particular day, or first aid. They have to go around the mulberry bush and that. So, great work. Town clerk is really efficient, does a wonderful job to us as well. and that. So thank you, and thank you for attending tonight. I appreciate it.
Peter?
I too would like to thank the staff for their hard work and dedication. It's very much appreciated. And also, thank you, everybody, for participating this evening.
All right, public comments. Anybody want to speak about anything? Yes, sir. You know the way it works.
Hello, I'm Ray Compton, 1317 Ocean Boulevard West. And I wanted to thank the work that Tim did and the Planning Commission addressing the size of lots. That was important to us at the west end for several years with respect to large houses. The Holden Beach West POA went through considerable expense to redo our master declaration and solve some of our own problems. But I can see some of the same problems may exist at this end. And it really has to do with the use, particularly assembly use of buildings, no matter how big or how small they are, where do cars park, and what impact they will have on ingress and egress for fire trucks or for people. If you have 150 people celebrating a wedding in a house and there's a fire, how do these people get out of the house? What bathroom facilities they have? So I think those issues need to be addressed by the town. Although again, I say, I think we've solved our problems. But again, I want to thank Tim and the Planning Commission for the work they've done. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else want to speak? Last call. All right, Madam Clerk, we want to proceed with considering going into executive session. Would you read the?
Executive session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A5 to establish or instruct a staff or agent concerning the negotiation of the price or terms of a contract concerning the acquisition of real property, and North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A3 to consult with the town attorney.
Is there a motion to go into executive session? Second, anybody? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, going into executive session upstairs.